Tonight, let's journey into one of the greatest novels ever written. War and Peace Waits for You, vast and patient as Russia itself. This is a story so big it contains everything. Love and death, glory and despair, Napoleon and a girl who wants to fly. Perfect for drifting through. What Tolstoy understood is that war and peace aren't opposites. They're both states of the human soul, battling inside each of us always. Picture Russia in 1805. Napoleon is conquering Europe, and in the glittering salons of St. Petersburg, aristocrats gossip about the coming storm. Our story begins not on a battlefield, but in a drawing room. Anna Pavlovna Scherer is hosting her famous evening salon, and everyone who matters is coming. Imagine stepping through those doors. French being spoken though you're in Russia. Silk rustling. The clink of champagne glasses. Everyone performing elegance like a play. Beneath the charm runs tension. Napoleon's shadow falls across every conversation. The war everyone fears and half desires is creeping closer each day. Through the crowd stumbles Pierre Bezukhov. He's enormous, awkward, wearing spectacles and clothes that don't quite fit. The illegitimate son of a dying count. Pierre doesn't belong here and everyone knows it. He speaks too loudly, stands too close, believes things too earnestly. The salon finds him amusing and strange. But there's one person here who actually likes Pierre. Prince Andrei Bolkonsky stands by the window, handsome, bored, watching the room with wary, intelligent eyes. Andrei has everything society values. Wealth, title, a pretty pregnant wife waiting at home. And he feels nothing but emptiness, a hunger for something real. Watch them together. Pierre seeks wisdom from Andrei, who seems to have answers. Andrei envies Pierre's ability to feel things deeply, to still believe. They speak of Napoleon. Is he a monster or a genius? Andrei's eyes light up. Here at last is something worth discussing. War is coming, and it excites him. Andrei announces he's leaving for the army. His wife is pregnant, yes. But he needs to escape this life of nothing. He needs to find glory or death. Meanwhile, Pierre's dying father, old Count Bezukhov, does something unexpected. He legitimizes Pierre with his final breath, making him heir to the largest fortune in Russia. The awkward young man who couldn't fit in anywhere is suddenly the richest bachelor in the empire. Every mother with a daughter circles like wolves sensing wounded prey. Helena Kuragina appears. She is the most beautiful woman anyone has ever seen. Cold as marble, empty as a perfect vase. And her family needs Pierre's money desperately. Before Pierre quite understands what's happening, he's engaged. Her beauty overwhelmed his judgment. Her family maneuvered him like a chess piece. The trap closes gently around him. Married to Helena, Pierre realizes his mistake almost immediately. She doesn't love him. She doesn't love anyone. He's bought a beautiful prison and locked himself inside. But there's another family we need to meet. The Rostovs of Moscow. Their house is everything the salon isn't. Noisy, warm, chaotic, and overflowing with love. Count Rostov is generous to a fault, spending money they don't have. The Countess worries about bills. Children run everywhere. Dogs bark. The piano never stops playing. And there in the middle of everything, 13 years old and wild as weather, is Natasha. She bursts into rooms. She sings without being asked. She loves with her whole heart. Her older brother Nikolai is heading to war, thrilled and terrified. He imagines cavalry charges, not cold mud and death. Youth believes itself immortal. War will teach him otherwise. Far away at Bald Hills estate, Andrei leaves his pregnant wife with his strange father and devoted sister. He kisses her forehead coldly. He is already gone in spirit. Armies begin to move across Europe. Lives that don't yet know each other will collide on battlefields and in drawing rooms. Everything is about to change completely. At Bald Hills estate lives the old Prince Bolkonsky, Andrei's father. He rules his household like a military campaign, with mathematics, schedules, and controlled fury always simmering. His daughter Princess Maria endures his cruelty with quiet grace. He mocks her faith, criticizes her appearance, makes her study geometry at dawn. She loves him anyway. But Maria has something her father cannot touch. When she looks up, those extraordinary gray eyes shine, with a light that transforms her plain features into something beautiful. Andrei's wife wanders the estate, pregnant and abandoned among strangers. She's pretty, she's trivial, and she knows her husband left because he couldn't bear being near her. Meanwhile, Andrei finds what he was seeking in the army: order, purpose, men who speak directly. The camps smell of horses and wood smoke, and everything feels finally real. The first skirmishes reveal war's true face to him. Not glory but chaos, not heroism but terrified boys firing blindly into smoke. Still, Andrei feels alive for the first time. Young Nikolai Rostov experiences his first cavalry charge. His horse leaps forward with the squadron, and for one perfect moment, fear becomes exhilaration, then terror, then numbness. Nikolai is wounded. Not badly, but enough. Lying in a field hospital, he stares at the ceiling and thinks about his mother. War is not what the songs promised. General Kutuzov commands the Russian forces. He's old, fat, missing one eye, and seems to do nothing. But watch how his officers trust him. He knows something they don't. Kutuzov orders retreat after retreat. The young officers rage. Andrei burns with frustration. But Kutuzov understands something about Russia, about time, about letting the enemy exhaust himself. Andrei wants to prove himself, to matter, to be remembered. He carries dispatches to the Austrian emperor. Dreams of the moment when his courage will change everything. 5. 3 emperors gather for battle at Austerlitz. Napoleon versus Russia and Austria combined. The mist lies thick in the valleys as armies arrange themselves for slaughter. The night before battle, Andrei cannot sleep. He walks among sleeping soldiers, imagining tomorrow. This could be his Toulon, his moment of destiny. Glory feels so close he can taste it. Morning comes wrapped in mist. Then the sun breaks through, the famous sun of Austerlitz, and the French attack with terrible precision, while the Allies stumble in confusion. The battle becomes a rout almost immediately. French cannons tear holes in Russian lines. Officers scream orders no one follows. The Grand Alliance crumbles like wet paper in flames. Andrei watches Russian soldiers streaming past in retreat. This isn't glory. This is shame. He grabs the fallen regimental standard from the mud. Someone must do something. Holding the flag high, Andrei charges toward the French lines. Men stop running. They turn, they follow him back into the fire. This is his moment, finally his moment. A French shell explodes nearby. Andrei feels himself lifted, thrown, falling. The flag drops from his hands. He hits the ground hard and cannot move, cannot think, can only look up. Above him stretches the infinite sky. Blue, endless, eternal. Everything Andrei thought mattered falls away. Glory, Napoleon, his father's approval. All of it suddenly so terribly small. How could he have cared about such tiny things? Ambition, fame, the opinions of other men. The sky holds nothing but truth. Everything else was fever dream and vanity. Napoleon himself rides across the battlefield, surveying his victory. He stops at Andrei's body, admires the brave enemy officer, orders him tended. Little man on a big horse, now so meaningless. Andrei survives. Against all odds he's found, treated, and eventually returned to the Russian side. The journey home takes months. He arrives at Bald Hills a changed man. He arrives just as his wife goes into labor. The whole house in chaos, screaming from the bedroom, his father pacing, his sister praying. Andrei walks in like a ghost. Lise dies giving birth to his son. Her last expression frozen on her face seems to ask him why. Why did you leave me? Why didn't you love me? He has no answer. The sky's lesson fades. Andrei cannot hold on to transcendence. Instead he falls into guilt, grief, the duties of raising a motherless child. The emptiness returns, deeper than before. In Petersburg, Pierre's marriage collapses. Helny has taken a lover, the dangerous officer Dolokhov. Everyone knows except Pierre, and then suddenly, horribly, Pierre knows too. Pierre challenges Dolokhov to a duel. He's never fired a pistol in his life. In the snowy clearing, hands shaking. Somehow he shoots first and wounds the experienced duelist badly. Pierre separates from Helny. Gives her half his fortune just to be free. He wanders his empty mansion asking the question that torments all seekers. What is life actually for? On a journey, Pierre meets an old man named Bazdiv who speaks of God, meaning, and the ancient brotherhood of Freemasons. For the first time, Pierre hears words that might be answers. Pierre undergoes Masonic initiation. Blindfolded, led through rituals, he weeps with hope. Perhaps this brotherhood holds the secret to living rightly. Perhaps meaning can be found through service and symbol. Filled with Masonic ideals, Pierre visits his estates to free his serfs. But the peasants are confused, the overseers resentful, and nothing actually changes. Idealism crashes against reality's rocks. 2 years pass at Bald Hills. André manages the estate, raises his son, visits his father. Days blur into months. He tells himself this is enough. He almost believes it. Spring comes, but André doesn't notice. On a journey, he passes a massive oak tree, bare and black while everything around it blooms. That's me, he thinks, dead inside while life continues. He stops at a neighboring estate, the Rostovs' country home. That's where he hears her voice, floating from an upstairs window in the moonlight. Natasha, now 16, talking with her cousin. She's saying she wishes she could fly, could gather herself into a ball and float up into that beautiful night. Her joy in living pierces André like light through cracks. Something stirs in André that he thought had died at Austerlitz, died again with lies. He doesn't understand it yet. But that voice, that absurd wish to fly, plants a seed. Riding home, he passes the same oak tree. But now it's covered in fresh leaves, transformed by spring into something magnificently alive. And André understands he wants to live again too. André returns to Petersburg, to society, to life. Not for glory anymore, but to feel, to participate, to matter in smaller, more human ways. He arrives just in time for the season. Natasha's first ball. She stands against the wall in her white dress, overlooked, terrified that no one will ask her to dance. Her mother watches anxiously. The music plays, couples whirl past. André sees her. Recognizes something, though he doesn't know what. He crosses the floor and asks her to dance. Her face transforms from fear to pure blazing joy in an instant. They waltz. The room disappears. His hand on her waist, her hand in his, spinning through candlelight. Neither of them has ever felt anything quite like this. Time stops, then restarts, changed. André begins visiting the Rostov house. He sits with the family, listens to Natasha sing, watches her play with younger siblings. The chaos he once despised now seems like warmth itself. Natasha falls in love with André completely. His seriousness, his depth, the sadness she can sense beneath his renewed energy. She wants to heal him, to make him happy, to be everything. But old Prince Bolkonsky disapproves. He demands a year-long engagement before any marriage. A test, he calls it. If their love survives a year apart, he'll consent. If not, well. André agrees. He'll go abroad for a year. Natasha will wait. They're young, she tells herself, though she's only 17. A year will pass quickly. Love conquers everything, doesn't it? The first months crawl past. Natasha writes letters, counts days, tries to be patient. But she's made of fire, not stone. Waiting feels like dying slowly while everyone watches. Then Anatole Kuragin appears. Helena's brother, beautiful as she is, empty as she is, but with a hunter's instinct for vulnerable prey. He sees Natasha and decides to have her. At the opera, Anatole positions himself where Natasha must see him. He stares at her without shame. Whispers reach her ears about his beauty, his conquests, his recklessness. She tries not to look. Anatole begins his campaign. Flowers arrive. Then letters, passionate and improper. He appears wherever she goes. Her resistance crumbles under a tension she's been starving for. André's letters seem so cold now. They meet secretly. Anatole speaks of love, of running away together, of living only for passion. Everything he says is a lie. But his certainty makes her doubt her doubts. Anatole arranges an elopement, a waiting troika, a corrupt priest, a new life free from rules and waiting in proper society. Natasha agrees, barely knowing what she's agreeing to. But someone warns Pierre. He discovers that Anatole is already secretly married. The elopement would ruin Natasha completely, leave her disgraced and abandoned. Pierre rushes to stop it just in time. The scandal erupts anyway. Everyone knows Natasha almost eloped with a married man. Her reputation is destroyed. She writes to Andrei, releasing him from their engagement before he can reject her. Andrei receives her letter abroad. Something in him that had just begun to heal tears open again. He swore he would never forgive betrayal. He burns her letters and buries his heart. Pierre confronts Anatole, driving him from Moscow with threats of exposure. Then he goes to the Rostov house, to Natasha, not knowing what he'll say, only knowing she needs someone. He finds Natasha broken. She's taken poison, been saved, lies in bed staring at nothing. Pierre sits beside her and speaks the words he's never dared speak. Not now, but someday. Natasha slowly recovers. Not through Pierre's love, which she can't accept yet, but through faith. Princess Maria writes to her. Prayer returns. The pieces of a shattered self begin to reassemble. Months pass. Natasha emerges thinner, quieter, the wildness burned out of her. She's 19 now and feels ancient. The girl who wanted to fly has learned that gravity always wins. June 1812. Napoleon gathers the largest army the world has ever seen. 600,000 men from every conquered nation, and he points them east, toward Russia. Napoleon crosses the Niemen River into Russian territory. The invasion has begun. In Moscow and Petersburg, patriotic fervor sweeps away all other concerns. Russia faces its greatest test. Andrei returns to the army, not seeking glory anymore. He tells Pierre he hopes to die, or to find something worth living for. Either would be acceptable. Both are equally distant. Nikolai Rostov, now a seasoned cavalry captain, drills his men for the coming battles. He's no longer the boy who romanticized war. He knows what's coming and prepares them anyway. Pierre decides he must see the war. As a civilian, as a witness, as a seeker still searching for meaning. He follows the army toward the coming battle, terrified and compelled. The Russian army retreats and retreats. Smolensk burns. The people flee eastward. Everyone demands Kutuzov fight, but the old general waits, letting Napoleon stretch his supply lines thinner and thinner. Finally, 100 miles from Moscow, Kutuzov chooses his ground, the village of Borodino. Here Russia will make its stand. Here the fate of nations will be decided in a single day. The night before Borodino, men write letters home they know may be their last. Priests bless regiments. Icons are carried through the ranks. Everyone understands what tomorrow means. Andrei walks among his regiment, men he's come to love. They trust him with their lives. Tomorrow many of them will die following his orders. He accepts this weight quietly. Pierre wanders the Russian positions, looking for understanding. Soldiers share their bread with him, show him their muskets, explain their fears and hopes. He's never felt closer to fellow humans. Old friends, both transformed by years and loss. Andrei speaks of war without illusion now. Tomorrow, he says, is simply organized murder, nothing more, nothing less. Dawn breaks over Borodino. Mist clears to reveal two vast armies facing each other across fields and ravines. 150,000 Russians. 130,000 French. The earth trembles. The first French cannon fires. Then 100 answer. Then 1,000. The ground shakes, smoke rises, and the bloodiest single day of the Napoleonic Wars begins. Pierre climbs to a Russian battery on the heights to watch. He sees waves of French infantry crash against Russian positions. Men fall in windrows. The redoubt changes hands again and again. Smoke covers everything. Noon becomes twilight. Pierre helps carry ammunition, helps wounded men, does whatever his hands find to do. He's no longer watching. He's living through it. Andrei stands with his reserve regiment, waiting to be committed. Shells fall around them. He refuses to let his men lie down. They will die standing, like Russians, he says. A shell lands at Andrei's feet, spinning, fuse burning. He thinks surely not again. He thinks of Natasha strangely, the moonlight voice. Then the shell explodes and everything becomes white light. They carry Andrei to the field hospital behind the lines. The surgeon's tent is a slaughterhouse. He lies on a table, barely conscious, and sees on the next table a familiar face. It's Anatol Kuragin, the man who nearly destroyed Natasha. His leg has just been amputated. He's weeping like a child. And Andrei, looking at his enemy's agony, feels only pity and forgiveness. The battle ends without victory. Both armies too exhausted to continue. 70,000 men dead or wounded. The French hold the field but gained nothing. Russia retreats but isn't broken. In Kutuzov's headquarters, generals argue. Fight again? Retreat. Kutuzov sits silent through the shouting, then announces Moscow will be abandoned. The army must survive to save Russia. Moscow must be abandoned. The ancient capital, the holy city, given to the invader without a fight. The news spreads through the city like fire through dry grass. The Rostov family packs to flee, but the courtyard fills with wounded soldiers needing transport. Countess Rostova refuses to give up the carts loaded with valuables. Then Natasha intervenes. Natasha orders the possessions unloaded. The wounded will ride instead of furniture. Her mother protests, but Natasha has found something stronger than obedience: conviction. The soldiers are loaded onto the carts. Among the wounded she's saving is Andrei, though she doesn't know it yet. He lies in a covered cart, burning with fever, dreaming of sky and forgiveness, carried toward Moscow's gates. The convoy stops at an estate outside Moscow. Natasha helps settle the wounded. Walking through the makeshift hospital, she sees a face she thought she'd never see again: Andrei. She falls to her knees beside his bed, asks forgiveness for everything. He takes her hand, tells her he loves her, has always loved her. Even through the betrayal, they are reconciled. Napoleon enters Moscow expecting surrender. Instead, he finds empty streets, abandoned mansions, a city holding its breath. No delegation meets him. No keys are offered. Just silence and waiting. That night, fires begin. No one knows who starts them. The city burns. Napoleon watches from the Kremlin as his prize turns to ash around him. Russia is eating itself rather than surrendering. French soldiers loot what they can before flames take it. Discipline crumbles. The Grande Armée becomes a mob of thieves squabbling over silk and silver, while their strategic position disintegrates. Pierre stays in Moscow, half mad with a plan to kill Napoleon. He wanders the burning streets in peasant disguise, pistol hidden, looking for the tyrant, finding only chaos and suffering. Instead of assassinating Napoleon, Pierre rescues a child from a burning building and an old woman from French soldiers. His grand plan becomes small kindnesses. Perhaps that's what meaning looks like. French patrols arrest Pierre as a suspected arsonist. They march him to a courtyard where other prisoners wait. Some are shot as examples. Pierre watches men die and expects to follow. But Pierre is spared. Taken prisoner instead of executed, he's forced to march with the retreating French army. Everything he owned, everything he thought he was, stripped away. Only life remains. In the prisoner column walks a peasant named Platon Karatov. Round, simple, cheerful despite everything. He shares his last potato with Pierre and speaks of God with the certainty of a child. Platon doesn't understand philosophy or ask why. He simply is. He accepts suffering without complaint, finds joy in small things, loves everyone including his captors. Pierre has never met anyone like him. Everything the Freemasons tried to teach Pierre through ritual and symbol, this peasant embodies naturally. Faith without doctrine. Presence without grasping. Perhaps meaning isn't found but lived. Perhaps this is the answer. Outside burning Moscow, Natasha tends to dying Andrei. Each day she reads to him, holds his hand, watches him fade. Their love, finally acknowledged, exists now only in borrowed time. Andrei drifts between fever dreams and moments of clarity. In lucid hours, he speaks of love and death without fear. Something has opened in him, the door he couldn't find before. Princess Maria arrives, having fled Bald Hills as the French approached. She finds her brother dying and her former rival nursing him. The two women embrace, united by love for the same man. Andrei tells them he understands now. Love is everything. Not romantic love alone, but love for all beings, for life itself, for the infinite. Death isn't ending. It's awakening from a dream. One quiet night, Andrei slips away. No struggle, no dramatic final words. He simply stops breathing, his face peaceful as a child's. The searching prince has found what he sought beyond the sky. Natasha and Maria keep vigil together through the night. Two women who might have been rivals, bound now by shared grief. Something precious and terrible has passed from the world. Little Nikolai, Andrei's son, doesn't understand why his father won't wake up. He touches the cold face and asks when Papa will play with him. No one can answer him. In Moscow, Napoleon waits for the surrender that will never come. Weeks pass. His army devours what little food remains. Discipline crumbles further. Winter approaches and no one has prepared. The French army is starving in the ashes of its victory. Soldiers fight over scraps. Horses are slaughtered for meat. Napoleon sends peace envoys. Russia doesn't even bother to respond. October 19th. Napoleon orders the retreat. 6 weeks after entering Moscow in triumph, the Grande Armée begins its death march westward. Winter is coming, and Russia knows how to wait. Pierre marches with the prisoners, surrounded by suffering. French guards are as hungry as their captives now. The categories of victor and vanquished blur in shared misery. Cold becomes the only enemy. But Pierre discovers something strange. He's never been happier. Stripped of wealth, comfort, status, he's free. Each day is complete in itself. He learns this from watching Platon, who needs nothing to be whole. At night, prisoners huddle together for warmth. Platon tells stories, simple tales with no clear point. But somehow they comfort everyone. His voice creates a small circle of peace in the frozen dark. Pierre asks Platon how he endures without despair. Platon seems confused by the question. "We're alive," he says. "Tonight we're warm enough. Tomorrow God decides. What more is there to understand?" The retreat becomes a catastrophe. Thousands die each night from cold and starvation. Bodies line the road like milestones. The Grande Armée bleeds soldiers with every frozen step westward. Platon begins to weaken. He walks slower, coughs more, needs help standing each morning. Pierre gives him half his ration. It isn't enough. Nothing would be enough now. One morning, Platon cannot walk. The French guards don't wait for stragglers anymore. Pierre hears a shot behind the column. He doesn't look back. He can't look back, but he knows. Platon's death seals something in Pierre. The peasant's simple faith, his acceptance, his love for everyone including his killers. This is what Pierre was seeking all along. Not answers, but a way of being. Russian partisan bands harass the French retreat. Cossacks and peasants attack supply trains, pick off stragglers, fade back into the forests. The vast Russian land itself seems to be fighting. Among the partisan leaders is Denisov, an old friend of Nikolai Rostov, and among his band rides the youngest Rostov brother, Petya. 16 years old and desperate to prove himself a man. Petya has run away from home to fight. He's brave, foolish, full of the certainty that nothing bad can happen to him. War is still an adventure in his mind, death a distant abstraction. The partisans plan a raid on a French convoy. Intelligence says prisoners are being held there. Petya begs to ride in the vanguard. Denisov hesitates, but the boy's eyes are too bright to refuse. Dawn comes gray and frozen. The partisans charge from the tree line. French guards scramble. Gunfire crackles through the fog. Petya spurs his horse forward, saber raised, shouting with pure joy. A French musket fires. Petya falls from his horse without a sound. He's dead before he hits the frozen ground. 16 years old, gone in an instant, the war finally real and final. Denisov dismounts, kneels beside the boy. There's nothing to be done. He's seen hundreds die, but this child with his bright eyes and absolute faith, breaks something in the old partisan. The raid succeeds. Prisoners are freed, including Pierre. He staggers into Russian hands, barely alive, skeletal, filthy, but with eyes that have seen something beyond suffering. He's liberated but hardly recognizes himself. Pierre is taken to a farmhouse, fed, cleaned, clothed. For weeks he barely speaks. When he finally does, his words are simple and strange. He keeps talking about a peasant named Platon, who taught him everything. As Pierre recovers, word comes that his wife Hail-Ni has died in Petersburg. Scandal, illness, the details vary with the teller. Pierre feels nothing but a distant sadness. That life belongs to another man. News of Petya's death reaches the Rostov family. The countess collapses. Her youngest son, her baby, gone. The grief is so enormous it threatens to take her too. She stops eating, stops speaking. Natasha, still grieving Andrei, finds new purpose in nursing her mother. Day and night she sits with the broken woman, coaxing her to eat, reminding her that life continues despite everything. Slowly, painfully, the countess returns to life. Grief doesn't disappear but becomes bearable. The family draws closer, held together by Natasha's quiet strength. She's no longer the wild girl, she's the center. Winter devours what remains of the Grande Armée. At the Berezina River crossing, thousands more die in the freezing water, crushed, drowned, shot by pursuing Cossacks. Napoleon's dream drowns with them. Of the 600,000 who invaded, fewer than 30,000 stumble back across the Russian border. Napoleon abandons his army and races to Paris to raise more troops. Russia has won by enduring. Kutuzov watches the French remnants flee. He doesn't pursue aggressively. Why waste Russian lives on enemies the winter is killing? Let them go. Let them tell Europe what Russia did to Napoleon. The old general doesn't live long after his victory. He dies the following spring, his work complete. Russia mourns him as the father of the nation, the man who saved everything by doing nothing spectacular. Peace returns to Russia, Moscow rebuilds. Estates damaged by war are repaired, the rhythms of normal life resume. But nothing is quite the same. The country that survived Napoleon is a different country. Pierre returns to Moscow. He's thin-bearded, utterly changed from the bewildered rich man who left. People who knew him before see something in his eyes they don't understand. He carries Platon's peace. He goes to the Rostov house. Natasha receives him. Both have lost so much, been broken so thoroughly, that pretense is impossible. They sit together and speak honestly for the first time. Pierre tells her what he discovered in captivity. How suffering stripped away everything false. How Platon showed him that meaning isn't found but lived. How he learned to love simply by being present. Natasha understands. She's been through her own fire, emerged her own phoenix. When Pierre finally says he loves her, she doesn't blush or look away. She simply says, yes, it's time. Meanwhile, Princess Maria at Bald Hills faces a different question. Nikolai Rostov has come to offer condolences for Andrei's death. He stays longer than condolences require. He keeps finding reasons to return. Nikolai is ruined. The Rostov debts, his father's death, have left him nearly penniless. Pride tells him he cannot court a wealthy woman like Maria. But his heart keeps overruling his pride. Maria loves Nikolai but won't speak first. Her whole life has been waiting, enduring, hoping. But something in his honest face, his simple goodness, makes her believe the wait might finally be over. Finally, Nikolai confesses both his love and his poverty. He cannot offer her wealth, only himself. Maria's response is immediate. She doesn't care about money. She never did. She wants him. 2 weddings are planned. Pierre and Natasha, Nikolai and Maria. The families who lost so much in the war will join together. From destruction, new connections grow like spring after wildfire. The weddings are simple by aristocratic standards. After everything, no one wants grand display. A church ceremony, family gathered, prayers said. Pierre looks at Natasha in her white dress and sees his whole future. Nikolai and Maria marry the same week. 2 families become one extended clan. Little Nikolai, Andrei's orphaned son, has more people to love him now than he can count. New chapters begin. Pierre discovers that marriage to Natasha isn't the restless seeking he knew with Hail-Ni. It's peace. She grounds him in daily life, practical concerns, children's needs. He stops searching because he's found. Natasha transforms completely into motherhood. The wild girl who wanted to fly now wants only this: her children healthy, her husband happy, her household thriving. She's never been more herself. Years pass in the rhythm of domestic life. Children born, seasons changing, small joys and small sorrows. The vast events of war recede into family stories told by firelight. At Bald Hills, Nikolai proves to be an excellent estate manager. The debts are paid, the lands prosper. What he lacks in philosophy he makes up in practical wisdom and genuine care for his people. Maria brings something Bald Hills never had under her father: warmth. The oppressive schedules are gone. Children's laughter fills rooms once silent with fear. Her faith permeates the household gently. Little Nikolai grows up between two households, loved by all. He has his father's sharp intelligence, his aunt's deep eyes. Sometimes he asks about the father he barely remembers. They tell him stories. The boy treasures every fragment of memory, every story. His father the hero, wounded carrying the flag. His father under the infinite sky. His father at peace in the end. Nikolai vows to be worthy. Tolstoy steps back from his characters now to ask the biggest questions. What is history? Who makes it? Are great men truly great? Or merely carried along by forces they don't understand? Napoleon believed himself the master of events. But was he? Or was he simply in the right place when currents of history swept him upward, then discarded him when the tide changed? Kutuzov did almost nothing. He retreated, waited, let winter and distance do the work. Yet he saved Russia. Perhaps wisdom is knowing when not to act. Perhaps patience is the deepest strategy. Tolstoy argues that history is made by millions of small decisions, not by great men alone. Every soldier who stood at Borodino chose to stand. Every peasant who burned their own grain chose sacrifice. Free will and necessity intertwine. We feel we choose, but are our choices shaped by everything that came before? The question has no final answer, only the living through it. What Tolstoy knows for certain is that Pierre's small transformation matters as much as any battle. One person learning to love properly changes the world, though no history book records it. Natasha's choice to give wounded soldiers the family carts mattered. Maria's faith sustaining her through years of cruelty mattered. Individual goodness ripples outward in ways we can never trace completely. Russia endured because Russians endured. Not through grand strategy, but through the willingness of ordinary people to sacrifice everything for something larger than themselves. This is Tolstoy's deepest theme. And now, many years after the war, the families gather for a holiday. Pierre and Natasha, Nikolai and Maria. All their children running wild through the old house. Laughter echoes in rooms once filled with grief. Pierre is portly now, content, his spectacles sliding down his nose as he plays with the children. He still reads philosophy late at night, but more from habit than hunger. The questions have gentled. Natasha watches her husband with their grandchildren and remembers the girl who wanted to fly. She doesn't regret trading flight for this solid ground. Some dreams give way to better realities. Young Nikolai Bolkonsky, Andrei's son, is nearly grown now. He has his father's intensity, his questioning nature. He argues with Pierre about politics, about Russia's future. The older man sees Andrei's ghost and smiles. Pierre still believes Russia can be better. Still dreams of reform, education, justice. But now he works quietly, practically, without the grandiose gestures of his youth. Real change is slow and small. Natasha keeps him grounded. When his ideas drift too far into abstraction, she asks practical questions. How will it work? Who will pay? She has no patience for dreams that don't touch earth. Nikolai Rostov has become everything his wild younger self would have mocked: a responsible landowner, a careful administrator, a man who counts kopecks and rotates crops. He's never been happier. Maria still prays daily, still sees the world through faith's lens. But her prayers now are mostly gratitude. The lonely girl with luminous eyes found love, found family, found everything she hoped for. Young Nikolai asks his aunt Natasha about his father one evening. She tells him about the moonlight, about wanting to fly, about a man who heard her and decided to live again. Her voice catches. The young man vows silently to honor his father's memory. Not through glory, seeking, which his father abandoned, but through the harder path of doing good quietly, of loving completely, of being present. Seasons pass over Bald Hills as they always have. Snow thaw, planting, harvest. The lime trees Andrei knew as a boy shade his son's afternoon walks, continuity consoles. In Moscow, new buildings rise where fires burned. New fashions replace old ones. Young people who don't remember the war dance at balls. But in certain houses, when old friends gather, the stories emerge. Remember when Pierre came back from captivity, someone asks. Remember how Nikolai looked in his hussar uniform. Remember Natasha singing. Remember Pedia. Always remember Pedia. The dead stay young in memory. The children of war have their own children now, who have their own children. The story spreads outward through generations like ripples from a stone. Tolstoy has traced just one set of ripples. What was War and Peace about? Everything. Love, death, meaning, history, free will, the size of the sky above a wounded man. One novel trying to contain all of human experience. Pierre found peace through suffering in a peasant's example. Natasha found it through motherhood. Andrei found it in death's doorway. Maria found it through faith. Different paths, same destination. Russia found it through endurance. By letting the enemy exhaust himself against the vastness. By trading space for time, cities for survival. The nation's soul proved larger than any invasion. Tolstoy found peace in the telling. All those years of writing and rewriting, trying to capture truth in scenes and characters. The novel is its own answer to the questions it asks. Think back to where we began. Anna Pavlovna's salon, the glittering gossip, Pierre stumbling through doors into a world he didn't understand. How distant that seems now, how small those concerns. Pierre traveled from confusion through wealth, through misery, through captivity, to arrive at this quiet contentment. The longest journey, the hardest road. And he wouldn't trade a step of it. Natasha traveled from wildness through passion, through shame, through grief, to become exactly what she was meant to be. The flying girl discovered that roots can hold as much joy as wings. Andrei traveled from pride through glory, through disillusion, through love to the infinite sky. His journey ended early, but ended well. Not everyone needs length of years. Some need depth of understanding. Maria traveled from oppression through faithfulness, through patience to quiet joy. She never sought adventure, never demanded drama. She simply endured until endurance was rewarded. The meek inheriting what matters. Nikolai traveled from romantic soldier to practical farmer. The cavalryman became a steward. The boy seeking glory became a man seeking only to do right by those who depend on him. Russia traveled from complacency, through invasion, through fire, through winter victory, to a deeper sense of itself. The nation that survived Napoleon knew what it was made of, at last. History traveled through Tolstoy's pages from abstraction to lived experience. Not dates and treaties, but faces and choices. Not great men alone, but everyone. Every decision, every refusal to surrender. One final evening at Bald Hills, all the family gathered. A fire burning low. Children asleep in laps, old friends and new loves. Survivors and those born after, all part of one story. Outside, stars emerge over the Russian plain. The same stars Andrei saw above Austerlitz. The same stars that watched Napoleon's retreat. The same stars that will shine when all these people are dust. Someone suggests they should all go to bed. No one moves. The fire is warm, the company dear, the night too perfect to end. A few more minutes, someone says, just a few more. Pierre looks at Natasha across the room. She looks back. In that glance passes everything they've shared, everything they've lost, everything they've built. Whole conversations in a moment's eye contact. He thinks of Platon Karatav, who never saw this peace but made it possible. Of Andrei, who loved Natasha first and pointed Pierre toward light. Of all the dead who live in the living. Little Pedia Rostov is there too in memory. Forever 16, forever eager, forever loved. The family never speaks of him without tears, never stops speaking of him. He stays young while they age. Love persists. Through war, through death, through time itself. This is what Tolstoy wanted us to know. Love persists. It's the one thing that outlasts everything else. The novel ends where all lives end in continuation. The characters go on living past the final page. Their children have children. Russia has more wars, more winters, more springs. Stories never really finish. Tolstoy gave us more than a story. He gave us a way of seeing. Every person contains multitudes. Every moment connects to every other moment. Nothing is truly separate, everything flows. War is part of peace. Peace contains the seeds of war. This endless alternation is the rhythm of human history. We live within it, shaped by it, perhaps shaping it in return. Suffering doesn't redeem automatically, but attended to with love, with presence, with faith, it can become a teacher. Pierre learned this. Natasha learned this. Maria always knew it. At last the family does go to bed. Candles are snuffed. Doors close quietly. The old house settles into night. Tomorrow will bring ordinary days, ordinary joys, ordinary sorrows. This is enough. Russia sleeps under the stars. The vast country that absorbed Napoleon's army, that buried so many, that keeps giving birth to more. Russia endures, as it always has, as perhaps it always will. Hundreds of characters walked through these pages. Princes and peasants, generals and privates, mothers and lovers, children and ancients. All of them true, all of them part of one vast tapestry. The truth is simple beneath the complexity. Love one another, accept what cannot be changed. Find meaning in small things. Live fully even knowing you will die. That's all. That's everything. Every question the novel asked finds its answer in how the characters live. Not in philosophy or theology, but in breakfast tables and children's laughter, and the thousand tiny choices of an ordinary day. The story concludes but doesn't end. Even now, in whatever year you hear this, Pierre and Natasha live somewhere in the imagination. Their children grow. Their grandchildren ask questions. Their love continues. Tolstoy released them into the world, and they've never come back. They belong to everyone now who reads and remembers. That's what literature does. It makes the mortal immortal through love. Their lives continue beyond the pages, in your imagination, in your dreams tonight perhaps. Pierre finding another small reform to champion. Natasha bouncing another grandchild. Maria praying another grateful prayer. Peace settles over the story like snow over Russia. The battles are over. The losses are mourned. What remains is what always remains. People loving each other, choosing hope, beginning again. The story rests now. You can return to it any time, find these people waiting. They've become part of you through the listening. You carry them with you into your own peace. Now we'll step back from the story to meet its creator. Tolstoy himself had a life as dramatic as any of his characters. Perhaps more so. His journey too was war and peace intertwined. Now let's meet the man who created this vast world. Leo Tolstoy was born in 1820, at Yasnaya Polyana, a country estate south of Moscow. Aristocracy surrounded him from his first breath, but tragedy found him early. His mother died when he was 2. His father when he was 9. The boy who would write about family was raised by relatives, aching for parents he barely remembered. His grandmother and aunts raised him with love, but also with the casual cruelty of the Russian aristocracy toward servants. Young Leo absorbed contradictions, privilege and conscience, comfort and guilt, that would haunt him always. As a young man, Tolstoy was wild. He gambled away portions of his inheritance. He drank heavily. He seduced peasant women and village girls. His diaries from this period burn with self-loathing and broken resolutions. Seeking escape from himself, he joined the army and traveled to the Caucasus. There, amid mountain tribes and constant danger, he began writing seriously. The beautiful violence of the frontier focused something in him. The Crimean War brought him to Sevastopol, under siege by British and French forces. He commanded an artillery battery and watched men die around him. His Sevastopol sketches made him famous overnight. Russia recognized a new voice. Here was someone who wrote about war without false glory, about soldiers without sentimentality. The young count returned from Crimea a literary celebrity, lionized in Petersburg salons. But salons bored him. Europe bored him. He traveled through France, Germany, Switzerland, looking for educational ideas, philosophical systems, anything that might explain how humans should live. He found nothing that satisfied. He returned to Yasnaya Polyana and opened a school for peasant children. He believed education should be free, joyful, without punishment. The local authorities watched this eccentric count, teaching serfs children with deep suspicion. At 34, he married Sophia Bears, barely 18. She was intelligent, passionate, and would become the most important person in his creative life. She would also become, eventually, his greatest antagonist. The early years of marriage were intensely productive and intensely fertile. Sophia bore 13 children. Between pregnancies and nursing, she copied her husband's manuscripts in her clear handwriting, sometimes rewriting the same pages dozens of times. War and Peace consumed 6 years. Tolstoy wrote and rewrote obsessively. Whole characters appeared and disappeared between drafts. The structure shifted and shifted again. Sophia copied every version without complaint. He read everything written about 1812. Histories, memoirs, letters, military records. He interviewed ancient veterans who still remembered Borodino. He wanted every detail true, every feeling authentic, every moment earned. He visited the Borodino battlefield himself. Walked the ground where 100,000 men had fought. Stood where Andrei would fall and looked up at the sky. The novel's truth was walked, not just imagined. His own family provided models for his characters. His grandfather, fierce and mathematical, became old Prince Bolkonsky. His wife's sister Tanya, wild and vivacious, lent her spirit to Natasha. Truth wore fictional masks. Pierre carries Tolstoy's own searching, his spiritual hunger, his awkwardness in society, his desperate need to find meaning. When Pierre wanders through burning Moscow, it's Tolstoy himself looking for answers in the flames. Andrei's pride, his disillusionment, his moments of transcendence also belong to Tolstoy, who knew both the seduction of glory and its ultimate emptiness. The infinite sky spoke to both men equally. The novel was published serially in a Russian literary journal between 1865 and 1869. Each installment was devoured by readers hungry for the next chapter. Russia read itself in these pages. Some critics complained about the philosophical digressions. Too much essay, not enough story, they said. Tolstoy ignored them. He believed fiction without philosophy was mere entertainment. He wanted transformation, not just pleasure. The completed novel was immediately recognized as something unprecedented. Not just a Russian masterpiece, but a world masterpiece. Translations spread across Europe. Tolstoy became overnight one of the most famous writers alive. What made it different? Length alone didn't explain it. The combination of intimate psychology with vast historical canvas was new. No one had tried to be both Austen and Homer simultaneously before. Tolstoy's method of capturing consciousness influenced every novelist who followed. The way he moved inside characters' minds, showing thought as it happens, chaotic and associative. He invented techniques we now take for granted. His battle scenes set a standard. Before Tolstoy, war in fiction was heroic poses and dramatic speeches. After Tolstoy, war was confusion, terror, the soldier's eye view of chaos. Every war novelist since follows his path. After War and Peace came Anna Karenina, darker and more focused. Then a spiritual crisis that changed everything. Tolstoy in his 50s began to question everything he had written, everything he had been. He became obsessed with the question of death. How could he live knowing he would die? How could anyone? He read every philosopher, every theologian. Nothing satisfied until he looked at how peasants lived. The peasants didn't question. They worked, prayed, accepted suffering, loved their families, and died without the terror that paralyzed Tolstoy. Their faith wasn't intellectual. It was lived. Pierre had learned this from Platon long ago. Tolstoy reinvented himself as a religious thinker. He rejected the Orthodox Church, created his own Christianity, based on the Sermon on the Mount. He preached nonviolent resistance, simple living, the rejection of all coercion. This caused havoc in his marriage. Sophia didn't want to give up their wealth. She wanted her children to inherit the estate. Tolstoy wanted to renounce copyrights, property, everything. They battled for decades. Followers flocked to Yasnaya Polyana. Tolstoyans they were called, men and women trying to live by the master's principles. They farmed, wore simple clothes, rejected violence. Some were sincere, some were mad, all were devoted. His influence spread worldwide. In South Africa, a young lawyer named Gandhi read Tolstoy and began developing his philosophy of nonviolent resistance. They corresponded. The novelist became a moral force far beyond literature. Let's step back further now to the history Tolstoy depicted. 1805 Napoleon has crowned himself emperor. Europe trembles. Austria and Russia form an alliance to stop him. It fails catastrophically at Austerlitz. The years between Austerlitz and the invasion saw Napoleon conquer most of continental Europe. Prussia crushed. Spain occupied. Russia forced into an uncomfortable alliance with the man who clearly meant to rule everything. Tsar Alexander I of Russia was Napoleon's reluctant ally. They met on a raft at Tilsit, carved up Europe between them. But both knew this peace was temporary. The continent wasn't big enough for two emperors. By 1812, Napoleon had assembled the largest army Europe had ever seen. Not just French troops, but Germans, Poles, Italians, Dutch. Men from every conquered nation. 600,000 soldiers crossing into Russia. Russia had perhaps 200,000 soldiers to oppose them, scattered across the vast frontier. The generals argued stand and fight, or retreat and trade space for time. Kutuzov understood what the young officers couldn't. Napoleon expected a quick, decisive battle, then surrender as had happened everywhere else. Instead, the Russians retreated, and retreated, and retreated. The French supply lines stretched thin. The vast Russian distances swallowed regiments. Borodino, September 7, 1812. The bloodiest single day until the First World War. 70,000 casualties in 12 hours. Neither side could claim victory, but the French took the field. Moscow lay open. Moscow burned. The debate continues who started the fires. French looters with careless torches. Russian patriots denying their city to the enemy. Governor Rostopchin's scorched earth policy. Perhaps all three. The city became ash. Napoleon waited in the smoking ruins for 5 weeks. No peace offer came. His army ate horses, fought rats for food, sickened in the ash. Winter approached. Finally, he ordered retreat, too late. The retreat became a death march. Temperatures dropped below -30. Horses died by thousands. Soldiers froze in their sleep. Cossacks harassed the columns day and night. The greatest army became the greatest catastrophe. At the Berezina River crossing, the remnants of the Grande Armée had to fight through Cossacks to reach bridges built under fire. Thousands drowned in the freezing water. 20,000 more died on the banks. Of 600,000 who invaded, fewer than 100,000 recrossed the Russian border alive, and most of those would die of wounds and sickness. Napoleon left his army and raced to Paris to raise another. Russia had won by refusing to lose, by trading cities for survival, by letting their greatest enemy, winter, fight for them. Kutuzov's patience proved wiser than Napoleon's genius. Inaction became the ultimate strategy. The war continued for 2 more years as Russian armies pursued Napoleon into Europe. Paris fell in 1814. Napoleon abdicated, exiled to Elba, escaped, returned for 100 days, lost at Waterloo, exiled again. The saga ended. Russia emerged as the dominant European power, the gendarme of the continent. But the nation that defeated Napoleon was also the nation of serfs and autocracy. Victory didn't bring reform. That would take another century. This is the history Tolstoy reimagined. He took events everyone knew and made them felt. The facts became faces. The statistics became souls. That transformation is what literature can do that history cannot. War and Peace has been adapted countless times. The 1956 Soviet film by Sergei Bondarchuk took 7 years to make, used real cavalry, cost more than any Soviet film ever made. It won the Academy Award. 7 hours of cinema trying to match Tolstoy's scope. Some say it succeeded, some say nothing could. But the images, Natasha at the ball, Pierre in the burning city, Andrei under the sky, became definitive for millions. The BBC has adapted War and Peace multiple times, most recently in 2016. Each generation finds new actors for Pierre and Natasha, new ways into the story. The novel proves inexhaustible. Prokofiev composed an opera. 13 scenes, 4 hours of music, trying to contain Tolstoy's epic in arias and choruses. The Bolshoi premiered it during World War II, when Russia again faced invasion. Every historical novelist since Tolstoy works in his shadow. He proved that fiction could contain philosophy, that characters could embody ideas without ceasing to be human. He expanded what the novel could be. His psychological technique, moving inside the mind to show thought forming, influenced Proust, Joyce, Woolf. The stream of consciousness begins, in some ways, with Tolstoy's characters thinking on the page. His depiction of battle influenced every war writer who followed. Hemingway, Mailer, Tim O'Brien. The idea that war is chaos experienced by terrified individuals, not choreographed movements on a map. Tolstoy taught this. The novel's structure influenced epic storytelling everywhere. Multiple plot lines weaving together, years passing between chapters, the private and historical intertwined. Modern prestige television owes something to Tolstoy's example. Most importantly, Tolstoy showed that ambitious art and popular appeal weren't opposites. War and Peace is profound and readable, philosophical and gripping. It asks great questions while telling a great story. Both are possible. Why does the novel still matter today? Because war still happens. Because peace is still hard won. Because we still ask what makes life meaningful. Because love and death are still the only subjects. Pierre's search for meaning echoes in everyone who has felt lost in a world that offers no clear answers. His journey from confusion through suffering to peace is a map we can follow. Natasha's transformation from wild girl to grounded mother speaks to questions about how we change, what we lose, what we gain. Her fire didn't disappear, it found a new hearth. Andrei's disillusionment with glory, his discovery of the infinite under the sky, speaks to anyone who has achieved what they thought they wanted and found it empty. Success isn't meaning. Meaning must be found elsewhere. Maria's patient faith, rewarded after years of suffering, offers hope to anyone enduring difficulty without visible end. Sometimes the answer is simply to wait, to maintain, to trust that change will come. Kutuzov's wisdom of inaction speaks to leaders in every field. Sometimes the best strategy is patience. Sometimes winning means not losing. Sometimes the enemy defeats himself if you refuse to give him what he needs. Platon Karatov's simple acceptance offers an alternative to endless striving. His faith without theology, his presence without grasping, suggests that meaning might already be here, waiting to be noticed rather than achieved. Russia itself in the novel speaks to every nation that has faced existential threat and survived through endurance. The vast land swallowed the invader. Sometimes geography is destiny. Sometimes time is the ultimate weapon. If you want to read War and Peace, where should you start? Any translation will give you the story. But some translations are better than others, and the choice affects your experience. Constance Garnett's translation from 1904 was the first widely read English version. Elegant and somewhat Victorian. It brought Tolstoy to English readers for the first time. Some still prefer its musicality. The Mauds, Almer and Louise, knew Tolstoy personally. Their translation, which Tolstoy himself endorsed, is considered by many scholars the most faithful. It's clear, readable, and accurate, a safe choice. Pivir and Volokonsky's modern translation from 2007 preserves more of Tolstoy's Russian strangeness. Some find it more authentic, others more awkward. It's become the new standard in many classrooms. Anthony Briggs's translation, also recent, aims for accessibility. It reads smoothly in contemporary English. If you've never read a Russian novel, this might be your gentlest entry point. The truth is, any complete translation will change your life if you let it. The story transcends its translators. Pierre and Natasha are real in every language, Just start. The novel will do the rest. How should you approach such a long book? Surrender to its length. Don't try to rush. Let the characters become familiar over weeks, not days. The slowness is the point. Immersion requires time. The first 100 pages are the hardest. So many names, so many characters, so much French in the dialogue. Push through. By page 200, you'll know everyone. By page 500, you'll love them. Don't skip the philosophical chapters, tempting as it might be. They're where Tolstoy tells you what he thinks the story means. You might disagree, but the argument is part of the experience. Many readers report that finishing War and Peace changes them. Not in dramatic ways, but quietly. They see their own lives differently. They understand something about history and individual choice they didn't before. Some read it again years later and find a different book. What spoke to them at 20 speaks differently at 50. The novel has layers that only open with returning. It rewards rereading infinitely. Tolstoy died in 1910 at a small railway station. He had fled his estate, fleeing his unhappy marriage, fleeing his fame, seeking some final simplicity. Pneumonia caught him instead. The world mourned. Thousands came to his funeral. Peasants and princes, revolutionaries and policemen. No priest officiated at his request. He was buried simply at Yasnaya Polyana, beneath the trees where his brother once told him the secret of happiness. His grave remains there still, unmarked except by the green stick his brother mentioned, a simple mound in the woods. Pilgrims come from everywhere. The man who rejected fame became eternally famous. His influence outlived him. Gandhi continued corresponding with Tolstoyans. Martin Luther King studied his nonviolent philosophy. The moral force Tolstoy generated continues rippling through history, changing how we think about peace. War and Peace survives because it tells the truth. Not the small truth of what happened when, but the large truth of what it feels like to be human. That truth never dates. As long as people fall in love, lose loved ones, search for meaning, face death, there will be readers for Tolstoy. His characters are us. Their struggles are ours. The story never really ends. The invitation stands always. The book waits on shelves in libraries, bookstores, digital devices. Pierre and Natasha wait there, patient as Russia. Ready to come alive again when you open the first page. Perhaps tonight you'll dream of snow falling on Russian fields, of chandeliers in Petersburg salons, of cannon fire at Borodino, of two old friends talking by a fire. The story has entered you now. You've spent time with these people. Pierre's searching, Natasha's passion, Andrei's transcendence, Maria's faith. Even through summary, something of them has become yours. That's how stories work. They become part of us. Tolstoy would have liked that. He wrote to connect, to make readers feel less alone in their questioning. Every person who reads him joins a community stretching back over a century and forward without end. Literature at its best creates these invisible connections. A man writing in Russian 150 years ago touches someone hearing this tonight. Time and space collapse. Minds meet across impossibility. This is the miracle. Thank you for traveling with me through this story. Through War and Peace, Love and Death, Russia and the Infinite Sky. Thank you for your time, your attention, your willingness to listen. The story has been told for tonight. Not completely, nothing could be complete but enough. Enough to taste what Tolstoy offered. Enough to know these people. Enough to carry something with you. Let's begin now to slow down. The energy of narrative is settling. The characters are finding their places in memory. The vast story is compacting itself into something you can hold and keep. Outside, whatever weather finds you, the world continues. But inside, where stories live, Russia is always there. The salons, the battlefields, the families gathered. All held now inside you, ready when you need them. Now we move toward rest, toward sleep, toward the quiet that comes after stories end. The night is gentle. The story is told. Peace approaches, as it approached all of Tolstoy's seekers eventually. We return now to the heart of what we've shared. Love amid chaos. Meaning found through suffering. peace earned through war. These truths settle into you like snow on quiet fields. Remember Pierre in the salon, bewildered and searching. Remember him at the end, playing with grandchildren, finally home. The longest journey was from confusion to contentment. You can make that journey too. What Pierre found wasn't answers but acceptance. Not solutions but presence. Platon taught him that life doesn't need to be understood, only lived. Each moment complete in itself, each breath enough. Remember Andrei under the infinite sky at Austerlitz. That moment when all his ambitions fell away and only truth remained. The sky is still there, above you now, vast and patient. In that moment everything simplified for Andrei. Glory meant nothing. Approval meant nothing. Only love and presence and the infinite remained. Such moments of clarity are available to all of us, waiting. The wars of Tolstoy's time seem distant now. Different flags, different weapons, different maps. But the human questions remain exactly the same. Why do we fight? What is worth dying for? How do we live? Peace isn't the absence of war. It's the presence of something stronger. Love strong enough to survive loss. Faith strong enough to survive doubt. Connection strong enough to survive death itself. The Russian winter that destroyed Napoleon was just cold in time and distance. But it became a symbol of endurance, of waiting, of the strength that comes from refusing to surrender to despair. Moscow burned and rose again. Families shattered and reformed. The worst things that could happen happened. And still, on the other side, there was mourning. There was rebuilding. There was love continuing. The children in Tolstoy's epilogue didn't know the war their parents survived. They grew up in peace their parents earned. That's how it works. We suffer so others can rest. Tonight those children still play in imagination. Pierre still finds Natasha's hand across the room. Maria still prays her grateful prayers. The story lives because we keep it living through remembering. The Petersburg salons seem so far away now. All that gossip, all that French, all those social games. Small concerns of small people unaware of what was coming. We see differently from a distance. Bald Hill's estate rests under stars tonight as it did then. The lime trees stand in their avenue. The old house holds new generations. Places outlast people but hold their echoes still. Moscow endures as Moscow always has. Different buildings, different rulers, but the same river, the same sky, the same human hoping and fearing. Cities are layered with generations of stories. Russia stretches vast and patient under the stars, as it stretched under Napoleon's ambition and swallowed it. Some things are too large to conquer. Some endurance cannot be broken. Rest in that truth. The night deepens now around you. Wherever you are, whatever weather finds you, the darkness gathers and gentles. Stars emerge or hide behind clouds. The world grows quiet. Let yourself grow quiet too. Imagine a fire burning low in a Russian hearth. The flames settling into embers. Warmth radiating without drama now. The family has gone to bed. Only the coals glow, patient and peaceful. Outside that imagined house, snow might fall gently, or stars might shine clearly, or clouds might hold everything soft and gray. Whatever the weather, the night holds all weathers equally, without preference. The characters we've met have found their rest. Pierre sleeps beside Natasha, decades of marriage warm between them. Their breathing synchronizes as longtime partners' breathing does. Peace embodied in rhythm. Somewhere in that imagined Russia, Pierre dreams contentedly. Perhaps of Platon's stories. Perhaps of his children's laughter. Perhaps of nothing at all. Just the deep rest of a soul no longer searching. Beside him, Natasha sleeps the sleep of the deeply loved. The wild girl found her home. The flying wish became grounded joy. She rests complete. Wanting nothing, holding everything that matters. At Bald Hills, Maria has said her evening prayers. Her luminous eyes closed now in deserved rest. All the patience, all the faith, all the waiting rewarded. God answered. She sleeps in gratitude. Nikolai sleeps the sleep of the honest worker. Tomorrow brings more accounts, more decisions, more steady labor. But tonight, rest. The body knows what the mind sometimes forgets. Sleep is sacred. Young Nikolai Bolkonsky, Andrei's son dreams of his father. In dreams they can meet. In dreams the dead walk with the living. He wakes sometimes with tears he can't explain, but also with peace. One by one, candles are extinguished across Russia. One by one, households settle into night. One by one, breaths slow and deepen. The vast country rests under the vast sky. Join them now. The book that held all these lives rests closed now on some bedside table. The pages hold their stories quietly. Tomorrow they can be opened again. Tonight, they wait in patient silence. Your breath finds its own rhythm now. Like the Russian rivers flowing under ice. Like the seasons turning without hurry. Like all the slow processes of nature that happen, whether we notice or not. You hold the story now. It's yours. These people, their struggles, their loves, their peace. Absorbed into you through listening. Carried now in memory. Available whenever you need them forever. Tolstoy gave this gift over a century ago. Sophia copied it by candlelight. Translators carried it across languages. Technology brought it to you tonight. Hands reaching across time to offer comfort. You've traveled far tonight. Through war and peace, through Russia and memory, through lives real and imagined. The journey was long. Rest is earned. Let the traveling settle into stillness now. Rest like Pierre rests, no longer searching. Rest like Natasha rests, wild energy gentled. Rest like Andrei rests. Questions finally answered by something larger than questions. Rest like the characters rest, complete. Morning will come as morning always does. In Russia and wherever you are. The sun will rise over fields and cities. But that's tomorrow. This is now, and now is for resting. The night holds you gently now. Whatever weight you carry, set it down for these hours. Whatever questions press you, let them wait until daylight. Night is for surrender, not struggle. Let the story drift now like snow, like clouds, like Russian rivers under ice. It doesn't need to be held tightly. It will return when you need it. Stories always return to those who love them. Pierre found peace after so much searching. May you find peace tonight with no searching required. It's here already, waiting in the breath, in the quiet, in the letting go. Natasha found home after flying wishes. May you feel at home in this moment, in your body, in your bed, in the dark that holds you. Home is here. Home is now. The vast novel rests on countless shelves tonight. In libraries and homes, in Russia and everywhere. All those copies, all those pages, all waiting. Stories are patient. They'll be there tomorrow. Sleep now. Thank you for this time together. For listening through war and peace, through love and loss, through Russia and home again. May the story bless your sleep with gentle dreams. Until next time, when another story waits. Another world to enter, another set of lives to meet. But that's for another night. This night belongs to rest. This night belongs to peace. Good night now. Sleep well. Dream of infinite skies and peaceful hearths and love that outlasts everything. Dream of peace. The story is told. Rest is here. Good night.